The Tigers have ended the Panthers' run. A surprise Challenge Cup final clash, and the Eels were too slippery for the Knights. Yes, and hello and welcome back to the Sideline Chat podcast, the one-stop shop for rugby league. It's only Mark Hendry this week, as Connor Marcellus is unwell and unable to join me this week, so it's all up to me. But he has provided some his thoughts this week, so let's get stuck straight into it. And we kick off with the round 13 review of the NRL between the St. George Illawarra Dragons and the Brisbane Broncos, where the St. George Dragons won 52 points to 14 over the Brisbane Broncos. Now, we all knew the Broncos weren't going to be in the match at all, but they kind of were there or thereabouts, because it was only 6 points in it with half time, as the Dragons were leading half time 24 points to 18, but it was the Broncos did score the first try of the match thanks to David Mead, so it was a bit of a surprise start considering how how much better the Dragons have been so far compared to the Broncos this year. So it looked like it could be a bit of an upset on the cards, but a poor second half on the Broncos is where it all went downhill, and it didn't help with TC Rabati going to the sin bin in the 44th minute of the match, and that's when it really went downhill for the Broncos as the Dragons piled on points. But I have to say, how the Dragons scored, how Matt Duffy scored his first try of the match was unbelievable. It was practically right on half time. Corey Norman kicked through the field because there was no one at the back, and Duffy, with his speed, went through and planted the ball down to put the Dragons back in the lead coming into the halftime break. And a very similar try for, I believe it was Jesse Arthur. Yeah, Jesse Arthur's for his first and only try for the match, and the last one for the Broncos. But there was a very, very similar situation there. But overall, the Dragons were just too classy. He had Jack Bird scored the first try, Willie Army, Gerard Beale scoring, Duffy with a double, Ramsey, Josh Kerr, and Ravalawa, and also Ben Hunt scoring for the Dragons, with Corey Norman getting most of the goals and Jack Bird kicking one. As for the Broncos, David Mead, TC Rabati got a double before he got put in the bin, and Jesse Arthur's also scoring a try. Jermaine Osako got 3 from 3, while Tyson Gamble got the 4th kick of the match. Quick go to Connor's notes before I progress through and ramble on, or I'll try not to, but anyway. His standout player of the match was the Dragons player in Matt Duffy, who got 2 tries, 5 try assists, 132 run meters, and 2 tackle breaks. Now, why can't the Dragons keep him? They have told him that he is free to go to another club at the season's end, but this just shows, after being off for 2 weeks with a rib injury, he's come back and has put on that performance. I don't know why, and no one seems to know why the Dragons are told him to let him go. He kind of says that another shocking second half from the Broncos, despite trailing by 6 at the halftime break. He honestly was like, what the hell was Jermaine Osako doing watching the ball? Which is true. He goes on to say, Matt Duffy had an unbelievable performance at the back, sending a message to the Dragons hierarchy. Whether or not they listen, that is on them. And I completely agree with Connor on that stance. Like, what are they thinking? Let's hope the Dragons keep Duffy. There is a petition online going around to try and keep Duffy at the club. Whether or not that'll be enough is a different story. He goes on to say that Jack DeBellin must be one of the happiest men out there, and the standing ovation he received upon entering the game was a nice touch. Look, it was Jack DeBellin's first game back in the NRL. He played reserve grade the week prior, and he came back and played his first NRL match in nearly 3 years. And the standing ovation that Jack DeBellin got when he came on the field was astonishing. And like Connor said, very nice touch. And I, obviously as a biased, well not biased, but as a Dragons fan, it was a very nice touch, a very nice touching tribute to him. It gave me goosebumps, even just reading that point out from Connor. It gave me goosebumps then. So it was really good to see Jack DeBellin finally come back in the NRL. Everyone thought his career was done and dusted when his court case was dragging on and on and on. But he's finally back, and all I can say, Jack's back. And the final point for Connor here is the shape of the Dragons' left edge with Jack Bird in the second row worked really well, both with Corey Norman and Matt Duffy. Yes, so as we mentioned last week when we were previewing this match, Jack Bird did get moved into the second row. And as I'll touch on later, he may or may not have stayed there. But it's good to because Beale's back and such as likes, it's good to see that he's in another different position. And wherever he goes, he's quite comfortable there. So playing in the second row was good. He's got the size. He can have this, like, being in the back line a bit too. He's got the speed, so he can definitely be a bit of a surprise in the second row for opposition clubs as the season wears on, if he stays there and if he doesn't get injured or suspended. Overall, the Dragons were the better side. As I mentioned, when Rabadi got put in the sin bin, it was just when it went downhill for the Broncos. There was a 40-20 from the Dragons. I can't remember who it was by, but another good highlight to have. It's just another loss for the Broncos. Like, we just don't know where they are going to be. They are battling for the wooden spoon against the Bulldogs. Sorry, Connor, I had to say that. But it's just the Broncos started off all right, but look, it's just a poor second half yet again. That's the story of this season. To have had poor starts and continue on for the rest of the game like that. But then other games, such as the one against the Roosters at the Sydney Cricket Ground a few weeks ago, they came out and had an upset victory. But yet they came out to another top 8 side and lost. So, I mean, in all honesty, the Roosters are still injury plagued, but it's just another poor performance overall. Into the first of the Friday night fixtures, and one of the only Friday night fixtures I should add. It was the West Tigers ending Penrith's dominant run, 26 points to 6 at Leichhardt Oval. The Panthers, in all honesty, had the bulk of their main squad out due to State of Origin being on Wednesday night. But it was just goes to show that without the bulk of their players, the Panthers can't do it. Yes, they're young. They did try the Penrith pack, but they couldn't quite do it. The Tigers, with a pretty much full strength side, they just put them to the sword. The Tigers are only up 10 points to 0 at half time, so the Panthers were still in it come the halftime break, but it was pretty much the story of the Tigers all match, really. And it's also Penrith's first real test of playing when State of Origin is on, because last season Origin was in November due to the shortened season due to COVID-19. And so this was a real test for them to see how they go without their class players like Cleary, Luai, Toto, and the likes. And it goes to show that they were a little bit weak, but as I've heard in the commentary, they said if they stick with this team for a few weeks, they'll get better and better. And that's what they did with before they get to how good they were now, like before all the rep players were gone. They had a few weeks before they get all the combinations right and that, and once they got going, they were firing. So I'm not suggesting that they are having the same team as what they had last week again this week, but if they do that, it will be working their way up again. The only try for the Panthers came to Matt Burton, who was back in the halves, and Stephen Crichton did get the only goal, so that was their 6 points there, and that came in the 51st minute. As for the Tigers, Dane Laurie's cross, Jacob Little, Luciano Leilua and Stefano Tucumano also scored, with Dewey kicking 3 out of 4 conversions and 2 from 2 penalty goals. Connor's thoughts. His standout top players for the Tigers and for the match was Alex Twal, who ran 174 metres. He had 4 tackle breaks and 17 hit-ups. Who has 17 hit-ups nowadays? Very few people do. And he showed that. And if he has the minutes, Alex Toll, he can play really good football. He just needs the minutes. He can be an 80-minute player, but he just needs to get built up to the full 80. He goes on to say, for the early stages, this was tight and close between both sides, which I completely agree. Like I said, only 10 points to nil at half-time in favour of the Wests, but end result, as we already know. He goes on to say, some argue that the penalty try, yes, a penalty try, we don't get them very often anymore, to Luciano Leilua was controversial, which it's a 50-50, but I agree it was controversial. However, if this was to the letter of the law and referencing to the 1999 grand final between the Melbourne Storm and St. George Illawarra Dragons, that is a penalty try. And yes, when you look at the footage and you have them side-by-side comparison, it was a very, very similar to each other. So, the one in 1999 was a penalty try. That one was a penalty try. So, that's where the controversy kind of kicked in. It was, yes, the rules are, well, they're still there in black and white from then to now, but how they enforced it then is probably a bit harder than what they were in that middle period, not that so long ago. Now they're cracking down on it again. They are enforcing it even more. So yeah, I agree. It was controversial in a way, but not in another. So write in the comments below if you have any thoughts if it was a controversial try or not. And the last thing he goes on to say was the makeshift Penrith right edge defence was frequently exposed by the Tigers' left edge attack. Yeah, look, when you look at the Panthers lineup, it was a very new right edge, but they somehow, and the Tigers did pick that out, which you always knew was going to happen since, well, even when the lineups were announced on Tuesday, you always knew that the right edge of the Penrith Panthers was going to be exposed to the Tigers' left edge due to, like I said, the Origin representatives being out, and it just went to show. As everyone went down, well, bulk of the Tigers' tries went down that right edge of the Panthers. Look, overall, it was good to. It sucks that Panthers' good form has come to an end. Well, not good form, but the winning streak has come to an end because they could have gone on a broken records. But it's good to see that the Panthers can actually get beaten. But, like I said, with all the Origin representatives out, that kind of fell into the favour of the Tigers a lot more easier than what it would have been if the rep players were there. So, who knows? The Tigers had the claws out, and they won in the battle of the cat fights. Now, the next match. It was the first and only Saturday match, as there was only 4 matches played across the weekend due to State of Origin. It was the Melbourne Storm playing the Gold Coast Titans at the Sunshine Coast Stadium. And the Melbourne Storm won 20 points to 14. But if you look at the halftime scoreline of 16 points to 4, you think, oh, the Storm are going to run away with his nose dramas. But no. The Titans came back and only lost by 8. No, hang on. 6. Sorry, my bad maths there. So, if it was a few more minutes in the match, whether or not the Storm would have got worn out or not would have been a different story. But the Titans, for them to only lose by 6 against a top side, like they are being in top 8 so far this year, I believe, for the Titans. So, it was good to see them put up a fight against the Storm, but they were still unbeaten. It was for Melbourne. Storm standout for Connor was Dale Finucane, who ran 119 metres, had 31 tackles and 14 hit-ups. So another very good performance there from Dale Finucane. I agree with him in his statement. He said this game turned out to be an absolute thriller. Yes, it did, and I give a big tick against that statement there because it was true. Like I said, only 6 points in it come the full time siren. It could have gone either way. He goes on to also say, had Brian Kelly passed when he tried to go for glory, the Titans could have had the chance to force Golden Point or maybe even win the match, which is true. If Kelly got there, it could have been easily a Golden Point match or even a Titan victory. But even if it did go to Golden Point, I would have felt that Melbourne still would have won the match regardless because of the better experience they've got in tight games. But there could have been an upset there on the cards. And as one last point from Connor, Melbourne's defensive grit was on full display against the Spirited Titans side, even when down to 12 men. Well, yes, Melbourne were down to 12 men in the 66th minute as Remus Smith was sent to the sin bin. So there was that crucial 10-minute stage where the Titans, well, they didn't score any points, but they kept Melbourne out quick. But in the end, as we know, Storm went through. The Titans could have won that. It would have been nice to see the Gold Coast Titans win against top 2 side, but it didn't seem to be. But it shows that the Titans are there or thereabouts this season. Titans did have more possession overall, having 58% compared to Melbourne's 42%. And Titans did have more minutes with the ball, and their completion rate was just 4% lower than Storm. So they were kind of on par with them overall. It just comes down to as Connor said, the defense for Melbourne was just that bit better. Before I go into the next match and the final match of the weekend, Remus Smith scored, Brandon Smith, Trent Lorio, and George Jennings all crossed with Nico Hines kicking 2 from 4 goals. As for the Titans, Greg Marzu crossed, Brian Kelly and Jared Wallace with Jamal Fogarty only kicking 1 from 3 for the match. And that match was supposed to be played in Melbourne, but it got moved to the Sunshine Coast Stadium due to the Victoria's lockdown, which we all know. Now for the final match of the weekend, and it's been 20 years since the 2001 grand final between the Newcastle Knights and the Parramatta Eels. And it didn't go quite the way of the Knights. They didn't get the glory this time around. They got absolutely belted 40 points to 4 over in they got belted 40 points to 4. So it just shows that Eels were the better side. They weren't affected by Origin. Only player for the Eels that was out for Origin was Junior Paulo. Blake Ferguson wasn't playing, but he got dropped. And for the Knights, it's just no Ponner, no Pearce. They're still not full strength, but they should be getting their full strength players back quick and soon. The scoreline was 22-0 at half time in favour of the Eels, and if Mitch Moses had one more goal, it would have been 24-0, which would have made it the exact same score as what it was in the 2001 grand final. So, but it wasn't to be. The only try for the Knights came in the 75th minute from Inari Tuala with Texoy missing the kick. There was one sin bin for the Knights, and for the match was Sawaso Sue in the 66th minute. As for the Eels, Madison scored, Hayes Dunster scored, Sevo got 2 tries, Gutherson scored, Cartwright scored, Opacek scored, and Wagga Blake scored, with Mitch Moses only kicking 2 goals and Clint Gutherson kicking the other 2 to make it 4 out of 8 kicks. The Knights weren't in it whatsoever. And as Connor goes on to say, he says, the Knights were shot defensive on both sides. First, the left side led in a soft try within 3 minutes before regular scheduled structures on the right also fell apart. He said Clint Gutherson had a ball in this game, helping Marco Silva get to 50 career tries in 59 games before getting back off his Fijian flyer. That is an outstanding record to have. 50 career tries in only 59 NRL appearances. If it keeps the score rate up, he could be level of career tries in the amount of games or even better. So I hope that happens. And it's Sivo, he's a well-deserved player to get that. So I hope he does get it. And the last thing he said was the biggest concern for the Eels would be how long Reid Marnie is ruled out for. Fortunately, Joey Lustig now can show his development since his time at Salford Red Devils. It was a bit of a downside for Reid Marnie, who got told that he wasn't needed in the Queensland Maroons lineup. So he was free to go back to play for Parramatta. And it looked like it was either a shoulder or a pec injury. It's later came out to say that he's partially dislocated his shoulder, so he'll be out for a while there. It's disappointing to see, but it'll be a good opportunity to see Joey Lustig come into the side and show what he is fully capable of, because he is a good player. He just hasn't got the game time, and he is stuck behind Reid Marnie. So, look, however long Reid Marnie was out for, Joey Lustig will be there to cover the spot quite good, and will even probably score probably a double hat trick, not in the one match, but across his time when Marnie's out, he'll probably, I'm predicting he'll get a double hat trick, so 6 tries. The standout player for Connacht was Clint Gutherson, who got 1 try, 2 try assists, 148 run meters, and 4 tackle breaks. So he did have a very good match for him. He just pretty much popped up here, there, anywhere on the field. Like, if he was needed here, there, everywhere, there he was. He was directing traffic. He was directing the players of where to go and all that, and setups, plays. And that's what Clint Gutherson can do. And it's unfortunate that he missed out on the Origin side, but who says he can't be there for Game 2 or Game 3? We'll have to wait and see when the teams get announced for that in due course. Now, that was round 413's predictions. So there's only 4 matches. Now we've got round 14 team news. Now, this is where we are back to full strength. As in, when I say that, it's all 16 clubs playing yet again. And we start off with the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles playing host to North Queensland Cowboys on Friday night, as there is no Thursday night game. This is at Lotto Land in Sydney. And the team news is at fullback you got Valentine Holmes, with the winners being Cole Felt and Murray Tulagi. Whether Cole Felt backs up after Origin, we'll have to wait and see. In the centres you got David Bowen and Hamiso Tibiwai-Foto. In the halves you got Scott Drinkwater and recently signed Tom Dearden, who gets his Cowboys club debut. At lock you got Jason Tolomolo, with the forwards being Jordan McLean. With the second row being Shane Wright and Colin Hess, with up front being Tom Gilbert, Reece Robson and Jordan McLean. On the bench you got Jake Greenfield, Peter Holler, Lachlan Byrne, Bryson Smolo. And on the reserves you got Justin O'Neill, Ben Condon, Assie, Corey Jensen and Kyle Labutt. As for the Manly side, Tom Dvojevic is named a fullback, but yet again, whether or not he'll back up or not is a different story. On the wings, you got Jason Saab and Ruben Garrick. You got Brad Parker and Morgan Harbour in the centres. The halves are Kieran Foran and Daly Cherry Evans. In the lock, you got Jake Dvojevic. In the back line, you got Ola Katau and Carl Lawton. In the front row, you got in the front row you've got Pasika, Croker and Tapau. On the bench you've got Dylan Walker, Moses Sully, Ben Travojevic and Sipley. On reserves you've got Kurt De Lewis, Cade Cast, Christian Tuipulotu, George Tafua, and Talatau Kalua. So, in other words, Das Hazard has named his Origin players in Cherry Evans, Travojevic brothers to back up. Only 48 hours after they play in Origin 1. Josh Schuster's out with injury. Kieran Foran, Dylan Walker, and Ola Katau and Ben Travojevic have all been named to play. Ola Katau feels the spot left by Sean Kepich's suspension, while Tavita Funes also serving a suspension. Zach Sadler has been cleared of a serious brain injury after suffering a head knock against the Knights and will undergo surgery for a depressed skull fracture and be sidelined indefinitely. As for the Cowboys, Jason Talamalo and Lachlan Burr are free to play after serving their suspensions, and Francis Molo also makes his return. Lukey has been dropped with Todd Payton saying on Tuesday that he didn't meet the club's standard in the last 10 days, and Corey Jensen has been dropped out of the side that beat the Warriors with Mitch Dunn suspended. Tom Dearden is the new halfback with Clifford being moved to the Knights. Going to the Knights this week, last week, and Justin O'Neill's been named to make his way back from the injury. Look, it could go either way, depending if all the Origin players back up or not. It's just has to wait and see if they do or not. But it could go either way. It's really a match of who's got the better team come the day. And only 48 hours after Origin on Wednesday, it could be anyone's game. Connor says the Seagulls will win in a 1-12 margin. Look, I don't know about this one. The Cowboys were probably less affected by Origin than what Manly were, and I personally feel that Des Hazard will rest Tontovojevic. So I'd say the Cowboys will win in a 13+ margin overall. So however Tom Dearden will go playing at halfback, we'll have to wait and see. The second Friday night match is the Cronulla Sharks versus the Penrith Panthers. In the teams we're starting off with the home side with the Sharks. You got Will Kennedy named at fullback, Ronaldo Mulatalo and Connor Tracy named on the wings, with Will Chambers and Jesse Raymond in the centres. Matt Moylan and Sean Johnson are the halves combination. At lock you got Tommy Rudolph, and in the second row you got Britton Nakora and Wade Graham, with Aiden Tomo, Blake Brayley and Aaron Woods in the front row. And on the bench you got Braden Tyndall, Talakai, Jack Williams and Andrew Fafita. And on the reserves list you have Tej Wilton, Chad Townsend, Franklin Pele and Mawani Hirote. As for Penrith, you got Dylan Edwards at the back, with Robert Jennings and Charlie Staines in the wings, with Crichton and Momorowski in the centres. Matt Eisenhuth is at lock, with Kickow and Scott Sorensen in the second row, and Leoto Coruscant and Fisher Harris up front. Mitch Kenny, Hopgood, Lenu and Isaac Targo are on the bench, with on the extended bench Isaiah Yeo, Nathan Cleary, Liam Martin, Jerome Luai, Kurt Cable and Brian Toto. So with the Sharks winning 2 in a row, they get 5 players returning from injury or suspension as they get ready to try and beat Penrith and make Penrith go 2 losses in a row. The only change is that Andrew Fafita is on the bench instead of Franklin Pele. And for the Panthers, they're going to see how the Origin players back up after State of Origin on Wednesday. He's got the only player that is starting that has been in Origin camp is Api Coruscant, who is only been 18th man for the Blues. So he's set to back up with everyone else in Cleary, Luai, Yo, Toto, Martin, and Kate Will being named as reserves, as already said. Steve Crichton said that we are not expecting any of the Origin boys to play. So, and I can understand why. Like, they've been playing really good footy lately, so you don't want to bring your star players back in after being out with Origin. And Origin is such a tense, tough game, so I can see why they want to do that. And like if because Linu is back to the bench, Leota's back, so that's the reason why. And with Jermaine Salmon and Lindsay Smith drop out of the squad altogether. Look, this is a perfect time to play Penrith. Like, if their Origin players do not back up, it's a perfect time to play. So the Sharks could win this one, and being at their second home, well, temporarily home at Cogra, it could be another victory for the Sharks to go 3 in a row, and another loss for the Panthers to go 2 losses back to back, which we have not seen in a very, very long time. So Connor says Panthers will win 1-12, but I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to say the Sharks will win 1-12. Yes, I know they've got Coruscant playing, but without Cleary, Martin, and the likes, they can't really, like, they can play well, but as we saw against the Tigers last week, they can't really put points on the board. So it'll be a struggle to see. It'll be a struggle for them. I'm going to say the Sharks in the 1-12 margin, and to win by only 10 points for the Sharks. And I forgot to say my margin for the previous match of the Seagulls Broncos. It will be a Seagulls victory, 13 plus, and to be precise, like always, it will be by 30 points for the Seagulls. Even if their players don't back up, they'll still win. So now we're going back on track for the first Saturday game between the Gold Coast Titans and the Sydney Roosters up on the Gold Coast. We'll go with the away side first. With the Roosters, we've got Tedesco being named to back up from Origin at fullback, with Matt Ikavalu and Daniel Tupou in the wings, with Josh Morris and Joey Manu in the centres. Lamb and Walker are the halves combinations. Liu's at lock with Crichton and Tupanua in the second row, with Wairua, Hargraves, Marshke and Takiaho up front. On the bench, we've got Adam Kieran, Egan Butcher, Daniel Saluka for feeder, and Fletcher Baker. With the reserves, Tuku Hay, Tafua, Ben Thomas, Brad Abbey, and Joseph Sawali. For the Titans, AJ Brimson is at fullback, with Philip Sami and Greg Marshu in the second row, with Brian Kelly and Patrick Herbert in the centres. Taylor and Fogarty are the halves combinations yet again. Fasua Moali is at lock, with Proctor and David Fafita in the second row, with Jared Wallace, Aaron Clark and Fodawaka in up front. On the bench, you've got Peachy, Jolliffe, McIntyre and S.A. Masters. And the reserves, you've got Sam Stone, Joseph Vuna, Jai Whitbread, Jaden Campbell, Anthony Don and Mitch Rain. So, in other words, it's pretty much full strength. AJ Brimson has been named to back up from Origin, with Jaden Campbell going on to the reserves, but he could get called up late if AJ Brimson comes out of the Origin match a bit patchy, not patchy, but like a bit fatigued, I should say. And the other reps for the Tigers, for Frida, Faster and Marley, Fodawaka, have all been named. And Roosters, Angus Crichton's back from suspension, which is a big in. And that's pretty much the only big in, along with their Origin players. Boyd Cordner is nearing a return, but the coach, Trent Robinson, says that he's not expected to face the Titans or the Panthers over the next couple of weeks. This one could be a clash of the week, really, I feel. Because the Roosters, yes, they've got star players and quality players. But whether or not if Tedesco backs up and the likes to back up, the big inclusion for the Roosters is Angus Crichton. So that's really good to see after serving his suspension. So he'll be a massive in for him. As for the Titans, it's a bit of a question mark over Brimson, whether or not he comes out of Origin all good, fit and firing or not. We'll have to wait and see. And the forwards of Fafita, Fasul, Marley and Whatuwaka also back up as well. Look, it's been on the Gold Coast. The Titans have been playing a bit better on the Gold Coast as of late compared to years ago when they weren't playing as well. This one could go down to the wire. Connor says the Roosters will win by 13 plus, but I don't believe that it'll be that big of a margin. Like, if Joey Manu played how he did the other week against the Warriors, I believe, I could be wrong, but if he continues on his form, he'll be unstoppable. And same with the Titans. If their back line and halves are firing well, they'll be pretty unstoppable too. So it could go either way, but I'm going to say the Roosters will win in a 1-12 margin. It's going to go down to, I'm going to say, possibly a golden point match. And if it will be, the Roosters will be the better team to win, even though they've got the less experienced players to kick field goals and the likes. But I'd say the Roosters will win by 2 overall. Look, it could go either way, but the Roosters will be that strong, but the Titans will be there or thereabouts and give it to the Roosters for the game. Now, the next match, South Sydney Rabbitohs against the Newcastle Knights at Stadium Australia. Before I get into detail of predictions, here's a team lineup for Newcastle Knights. You got Tex Hoy at fullback still, with Braden Musgrave and Nari Tuwala on the wings, Coat Man and Bradman Bester on the centres, Jake Clifford and Phoenix Crossland in the halves combination. Mitch Barnett is at lock with alongside Brodie Jones and Lockie Fitzgibbon, with Jacob Safidi, Jaden Brayley and Daniel Safidi in up front. And you've got Connor Watson, Sawaso Sue, Joshkin and Jack Johnson on the bench. And on the reserves, you've got Shibasaki, Momo Issa, Matt Croker and Dominic Young. And for the Rabbits, you've got Latrell Mitchell at fullback, Tane Milne and Alex Johnston on the wings, with Burns and Graham in centres. Walker and Reynolds at our halves as per normal. Murray's at lock. Koala Matagi and Host are up front with Murray. And Nichols, Cook and Totola are also up the front as well, with Benji Marshall, Jaden Sewer, Hame Sella and Tom Burgess in the bench. With the reserves being Knight, Margot, Taff, Mansell, Moga and Peter Marmozulus. I'm sorry if I get that name wrong. Look, that being the second Saturday game, you'd think that the Rabbits rep players will be able to back up, depending if they get injured, suspended, and the likes. And same with the Knights. But we saw what the Eels did to the Knights last week, so it's going to be this very same story again with the Rabbits this week. They just got too much class compared to the Knights. And without the likes of Ponner, Edric Lee, Heimel Hunt, Mitchell Pearce, it's still not full strength, and it clearly shows. And South should just be too good as per normal, even if they do or don't have Origin players, which I think they will, being that late from Wednesday night. It looks like it's going to be a Rabbitohs easy victory. Connor has the Rabbitohs winning 13 plus. I agree. Rabbits will be winning 13 plus and by 28 points. Now, Raiders versus the Broncos in Canberra for the third and final of the Super Saturday matches. And we start off with the Broncos. We start off with the Raiders lineup. They got Bailey Simonson at fullback with Jordan Rapana and Sammy Velame on the wings out wide, with Sebastian Chris and Matt Timoko in the centres. You got Sam Williams and Jack Whiten in the halves. So new halves combination there. Ryan Sutton is at lock with Corey Harawira-Naera and Elliot Whitehead in the second row, with Josh Papali, Josh Hodgson and Dynamis Louis in the front row. On the bench you got Tom Starling, Emre Gula, Soliola and Joe Tarpany, with the reserves being Elijah Anderson, Hudson Young, Matt Frawley and Harry Rushton. Now, Broncos, they have some massive change. Farnworth son at fullback, with Xavier Coates and Sylvan Cobbo in out wide. Then you got Dale Copley and Jesse Arthurs in the centres. An all new halves combination with Albert Kelly at halfback, and a welcome return to Michael Hunt, who makes his return to the Broncos and to the NRL, being his last game played in 2009, and he lines up straight in at 5'8". Tom Flegler's at the back with Alex Glenn and Tavita Pangai, and up front you got Matt Lodge, Jake Turbin and Payne Haas, with the interchange being Kobe Hetherington, John Asiata, Kenan Palacia and TC Rabati, with the bench being Testing New, Corey Pakes, David Mead and Jordan Ricky. Now the big in is Michael Hunt for the Broncos to see how he'll go in his first game back. So it'll be all new halves combination, which will be good to see how they go. And as I already mentioned, the major change is Herbie Farnworth is at fullback, with Jermaine Asako being dropped out of the side altogether, which is probably due to performance reasons. Haas has been named to back up from Origin, as well as... with Haas being named in the front row, Fegler's reverting to the locker and Asiata's back to the bench, with also Ethan Bullimore dropping out of the squad altogether. And with Caleb Aikens out, Bailey Thompson is at fullback, with Velame the new winner to already know. Papali returns from suspension and Tarpany makes his comeback on the bench. Curtis Scott has been stood down over an off-field incident, as you may have heard. And as already mentioned, Timoko is on the taking his spot. So this match could go either way. It could be another victory for the Broncos this season, but you'll think that the Raiders will be trying to win yet again, and they've been in a winner's circle for the first time in what feels like years, but it's only probably been a month and a half. I could be wrong, could be more. But the big player to watch for me for the Broncos would be how Michael Hunt goes. He's been thrown in there to start at 5'8" and expected to play 80 minutes for the first time since 2009. So, and the NRL has changed a lot since he last played then. So it will be interesting to see in the new halves combination, Jack White and Sam Williams. It will be good to see how they go. If White can keep his halves combinations going well, like he did with George Williams before he left the club. Overall, I think with the Raiders' second half performances being poor this season, you'd think the Broncos will be able to capitalise on it. Well, I don't know. With the rate the Broncos have been playing and how they got demolished last week against the Dragons, I'd say the Raiders might actually win this one for the first time in forever. And the Canberra fans will be doing the Viking clap very loud, like louder than normal, due to the victory. I say the Raiders will win in a 1-12 margin to win by 8. And as for Connor, he's saying the Raiders will win 13 plus, but I feel it will be a lot closer than that. Now, to start off the Sunday matches, we have got the New Zealand Warriors taking on the Melbourne Storm at Gosford. We're going to start with the Warriors lineup. We've got Tuivasa-Sheck at the back with Edward Kosi and Marcelo Montoya on the wings, with Ewan Aitken and Rocco Berry in the centres. Nicarima and Harris DeVito are the halves combination. Josh Curran's at lock alongside Bailey Seren and Tohu Harris, with Jermaine Tunnell Brown, Wade Egan and Armel up front. On the bench you got Murchie, Kane Evans, Afoa and Murdoch Masilla. And on the reserves list you have got Jazz Tukavanga, Sean O'Sullivan, Cameron Muller and Adam Panua Blake. For the Storm you got Nico Hines yet again at the back filling in for Pappenhausen. Addo Carr and Jennings in the wings, with Remus Smith and Justin Olam at centre, with Munster and Hughes in the halves. So back to the normal halves combination there. Dale Finucane's at lock, with Kafusi and Ken Bromwich. And Jesse Bromwich, Brandon Smith and Asafa Solomon are also making up the rest of the front pack. Harry Grant's named to make a return via the bench in jersey number 14. Tui Kamikamika is named there also, with Walsh and Aaron Penne, who won't be at the Storm next year as he has signed with the Warriors. Correct me if I'm wrong. And on the reserves you've got Dean Iramia, Tom Eisenhuth, Marion Seve, Chris Lewis, Trent Lorio and Cooper Johns. So there's a couple of names missing there. For the Warriors, most notably the young gun of late Reece Walsh, who has been out suspended, unfortunately. So he'll be back next week. I believe it's only in 1 week. It could be 2 weeks. And a big name is back on the bench, Anthony Blake for the Warriors. He could be a late inclusion to the side, which I wouldn't discount that out. So we have to wait and see how that goes. I think I said Nelson Asafa Solomon. Yes, I have, but he is out suspended. So Remus Smith is playing as well because he's been found not guilty. Munster, Kafusi and Addo have been selected, while Green and Walsh are also on the interchange. So all in all, it sounds like there's going to be a party on the coast, as they're saying, but not on the Gold Coast, the Central Coast. So the wrong coast before. I thought I'd clarify that before I go on. But with Cameron Munster back and being back to a full halves combination, like nearly full strength, they just had to wait on the return of Pappenhausen. I'd say Harry Grant will be back in the starting side to start next week, even though he's coming off the bench this week. He'll be back there permanently next week. Their big out for Warriors, Reece Walsh. His speed and how he plays, like he roams around the pack when the Warriors are attacking. So they will miss that, but Roger Tuivasa-Sheck and the likes aren't bad either. Like they're really good as well. So they'll be there. They'll give the Warriors a bit of a fight. The Warriors will try and fight Storm. How much of a fight the Warriors will put up, we don't know as of yet. We'll just have to wait and see come Sunday at 2 o'clock. The Storm, they're nearly full strength, so you can't go past them. Connor says the Storm will win by 13 plus. I agree, Storm will win by 13 plus, but win by 14 points. And it could be an upset match if the Warriors get ahead of them, but with the Storm, like I said, being all but full strength, it's going to be hard to stop them. Now, it's a battle to West, but it's not the Eels and Panthers. It's the Eels and the Tigers at Bankwest Stadium. We go with the Tigers team list first. We're going to start with Dane Laurie at fullback and Jimmy the Jet and Nofaluma in the wing, with Adam Dewey and Tommy Talau in the centres yet again, with Brooks and Emby in the halves. Joe Offahen-Gowie is named to back up from Origin at lock, with Luke Gunn and Luciano Lalua alongside him, with Tamel Little and Alex Toll back up the front. And on the bench, you've got Stefano Oitukamano, Sean Bloor, Tom Amone, and Alex Seyfarth, with the reserves list being Michael Cheekan, Billy Walters, Kalima Tulagi, and Jake Simpkin. For the Eels, Gutherson is named yet again at fullback, with Hayes, Dunster, and Makasivo still on the wings, with Opacek and Blake in the centres, with Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses being the halves again, so the back line's been untouched. Nathan Brown is at lock with Madison and Papali'i, and Campbell Gillard, Joey Lussick, and Junior Paulo in the forwards. And on the bench, Marata Niokore, Sean Lane, Oregon Kofusi, and Bryce Cartwright, with the reserves being Will Smith, Blake Ferguson, Jacob Arthur, and Nathaniel Roach. Now, Joey Lussick is the new half, with Reimani being out after partially dislocating his shoulder, as I mentioned earlier. Junior Paulo comes back in the front row, with Niokore dropping back to the bench, and Will Smith back to the reserves. Hayne Dunster keeps his place on the bench, as Blake Ferguson is being recalled to the 21-man squad, but is on the bench. Whether or not he'll be a late inclusion of the match, we have to wait and see come, well, you could say 48 hours, 24 hours, or then an hour until kickoff. For the Tigers, Mby's named at 5'8", despite picking up a knee injury last week, and Tom McGailey is out of the squad with a knee injury. And often Gary, as I mentioned, is being safer going back to the bench that's been left by McGailey. And Billy Walters, after suffering a serious knee injury in round 13 last year, he's getting closer to his first game of the season after being amongst the reserves, alongside potential debutant Kelma Tuilagi. Look, Parramatta at Bankwest, unstoppable. Tigers at Bankwest, poor record, let's not go there at all. So, in theory, the Eels should win this one by a decent chunk, depending on what they did, considering what they did against Newcastle last week in the Hunter. But the Tigers did beat Penrith, but like I said in the review, the Panthers did have you could say almost a reserve grade team, but they did have a lot of their main players out. But like I said, going back to the Tigers' record at Bankwest Stadium isn't very pretty at all. And the Eels have just been too good at Bankwest since it's been opened, and they've gone back there as their traditional home. The Eels will win this one in a 13+ margin. I'm going to say by 20. The Tigers will be there or thereabouts. But I don't think they will have the squad to overcome the Eels, especially like how the form Gutherson's in at the moment. Makasivo, he's been playing really good, and as we know, he got a double last week. Papali'i, he's been in great try scoring form. Bryce Gara, he's been a force off the bench since he's played his first game for the Eels against the Broncos in Darwin on Anzac weekend. So, Connor says Eels will win by 13+. I agree with him, and Eels will win by 20. And one more final match for the weekend. It is on Monday due to the Queen's Birthday long weekend here in Australia. It's going to be played at Stadium Australia. And here is how the home side line up. Dallin Watene-Zelezniak at fullback, with Nick Meaney and Nick Kotrick on the wings, with Will Hopperway and Aaron Sharp on the centres, with Brandon Wakeham and Jake Avarillo in the halves. The second row is full of Adam Elliott, Matt Dory, and Josh Jackson, with Hetherington, Marshall King, and Luke Thompson in the front, with Katoa, Napa, and Simon Fagai, and Stimpson on the bench, and Flanagan, Rodell, Katoa, and Smith amongst the reserves list. And for the Dragons, Matt Duffy is at fullback yet again, with Michaeli Ravalawa and Cody Ramsey, the wing combination, with William and Gerard Beale in the centres. The halves are again Corey Norman, Ben Hunt. Jackson Ford at lock, with Josh Kerr and Jack Bird, who retains his second row spot. Blake Rory, Andrew McCulloch, and Paul Vaughan up front, with the bench being Amone, Farmasili, Alvaro, and Jack DeBellin, and the reserves being Aaron Clune, Cade Ellis, Tarek Sims, and Billy Burns. So, overall, the only changes for the Dogs are Marshall Kinney's back, and Lewis is out, and so is Corey Allen, so they're at least another week away. Sione Katoa returns from suspension on the bench, but Chris Smith has to be satisfied with a spot on the extended bench after serving his suspension. And Bradley Dietz with a hamstring, and Jackson Topine are out of the 21-man squad altogether. For the Dragons, it's the same 17, which beat the Broncos quite heavily, with Tariq Sims being listed amongst the reserves. He could be a late inclusion, but we have to wait and see come, you could say 24 hours before kickoff. And Farmer Sedley's been named on the bench, but we'll need to pass HIA concussion protocols after last Thursday. Connor has gotten here that his team, the Canterbury Bulldogs, will win 1-12 margin in what I'm going to dub round 2 of the Sideline Chat podcast co-host cup. We know that Dragons got up over the Bulldogs earlier this season, and the Dragons will get up over them yet again. It's just the inconsistent halves again of the Dogs. It's what's proven them this year. It could go either way depending on how well both sides begin. Like, if the Dragons begin poorly, then the Bulldogs might capitalise, and then who knows what can go on from there. But for the Dragons, if they continue on the performance like they did against Brisbane last week, would have absolutely annihilated them. Well, it could happen again this week. It's or DeBellin will be looking to have more minutes as he slowly gets back into the NRL. And like I said, Tariq Sims could be a late inclusion this week after, depending on how he comes out of Origin. And yeah, we have to wait and see how we go come Monday afternoon, which we don't get Monday games very often anymore. It's only the Queen's birthday match, which is what it is this week, and the Easter Monday clash is what we will get for Monday fixtures in the current form of the NRL. That's it for all the NRL news today. Stay around for part number 2, where I'll be discussing the Challenge Cup, the discussing the review of the Challenge Cup semi-final, to see who makes the road to Wembley, and also the one and only league fixture that was played over the weekend, and also previewing the upcoming round number 9 for the Betfred Super League. I'll stick around for part number 2, and I will get back to you very, very shortly.